Okay, thanks for being here, everybody. My name is Tiffany. I'm a board certified and licensed nutritionist, and I am going to speak with you today about the metabolic math for your nutrition, metabolic math for fat loss. That's what most people seem to be talking about, but regardless, we want to make sure we're having the right macros for fueling your workouts at Farrell so you're getting your nutrition optimized so you can feel and function better. You're going to be able to be stronger, get leaner, recomp your body, whatever it is with those goals that you would like. All right, so the first thing we need to think about is like, what is your nutrition status? Are you lacking energy? Like, if you have a lot of these symptoms, lacking energy, have aches and pains, you feel like you have some poor gut health, if your skin is dry, flaky, blotchy, if you're feeling anxious, if you're sad and unmotivated, those are all signs of nutrient deficiencies. They could be signs of many other things too. But I will tell you, I see this on a regular basis where people will do testing and will see that all of these things or a lot of these things are deficient. And when that happens, one of the first things we start to do is, yes, sometimes we add in supplements to sort of therapeutically replete the nutrients, but we have to dial in the nutrition. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because if you are already feeling some of these things and you're going to embark on kind of a intense workout regimen, you're going to want to be fueled properly. So that's what this is about. All right, so with that being said, I know if you've already gone through some of the workouts and things with Farrell's, you have already set goals. You probably already reached many of them. Maybe you've set new ones, and maybe you have other things to do, like other goals to sort of finish out and complete. So think about what you want, how you can get there, and think about the ways that you want to get there when it comes to your exercise, your nutrition, lifestyle, mindset, stress management, those kind of things, and think about what gets in your way. What maybe causes you from being able to get to your goals sometimes, because there's something that comes up for us all the time. We've got a holiday coming up this weekend for a lot of people, and sometimes that's enough to throw them off their game. So just think about that and then figure out ways to manage that. So what we need to do when we're jumping into looking at our nutrition and that metabolic math is we need to focus on the eating, the refueling your body, and kind of getting back to basics for your nutrition. I want you to throw out all the food rules. I'm going to give you some rules kind of, but I want you to throw out the different rules of specific types of diets and fads and trends that are all out all over the place, and I want you to just get back to eating real basic food. However, if you have some kind of health condition that requires you to eat a certain way, that's a whole different ballgame. Then you need to go by that diagnosis and those recommendations for you that are specific for you. All right, so we want to think about the three food groups when we talk about getting back to basics with our nutrition. We're going to talk about protein. We're going to talk about carbohydrates, of which veggies are them, but there's a lot of other carbohydrates too, as you know. And we're going to talk about healthy fats. And then I'm going to teach you how to put it together to figure out what is best for your goals, knowing you can adjust along the way. All right, so we need to know our macronutrients. So you've heard of macro and micro, right, in nutrients. And so with the macros, those are our big groups of molecules. So proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and alcohol. And then we have our micronutrients, which is all the vitamins and minerals and amino acids that you probably have heard of. All right, so with protein being the first one, that's going to be sort of the highlight today, no surprise there. But protein is going to be sort of paramount to your training goals. How much protein do you eat? How much do you need? What does the protein do for you? Where is it coming from? That is a big factor in the protein and you reaching your goals. Where is the source of protein coming from? That's the big question. So we need to understand that protein gives us 4 calories of energy. Okay, calories are just is a unit of energy to fuel our bodies, right? So and it's actually kilocalories, but we always talk about calories. So there are 4 calories per gram for protein is what that contributes to our overall total calorie intake. For carbohydrates, we need to take a look at that. Carbohydrates are a huge food group, right? It includes plants. So that's going to be vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, grains, everything in that category, beans. And it's also going to include the processed foods. And unfortunately, we have such a plethora of processed foods, boxed, packaged types of foods that are so full of carbohydrates but not the ones that really fuel your body. So those are the kinds of things we really want to be careful of and really kind of guide ourselves to eating more of a whole food diet versus the processed diet, which is sort of the standard American diet, right? We want to go to more of the foods sort of pictured here that you can identify, you know what it is, not that it's been repackaged and processed into some bright, shiny package that makes us want to buy it. And then they label it with all these things. They call it greenwashing. Well, they'll say like heart healthy or gluten-free or low saturated fat or something like that. And it makes us think something is healthy when actually it's not. That's kind of a whole nother talk. I won't go into all of that information, but carbohydrates also provide 4 calories per gram. So that is what we need to kind of focus on to make sure that we're getting more of the carbohydrates from whole food sources. Okay, so the other carbohydrate that's not good for us is the sugar, obviously. Candies, sweets, commercial baked goods, they also have poor quality fats in them. We need to really avoid these. All right, and then fats. Okay, so we're gonna get fats from whole foods, right? We don't want to have fats from the processed foods, like I mentioned, like the commercial baked goods, the ones that come in the little boxes, nicely packaged with all the confetti colors on them, or even like if you go to a big grocery store and they have the bakery, those types of fats in those types of donuts are not going to be providing good quality fats to your diet. So trying to limit or avoid those altogether would be key because that just sets you up with inflammation. And the inflammation doesn't allow you to get into fat stores if you're looking to kind of recomp your body or just lose fat. So we want to focus on quality animal products. That's going to be a source of the fat. Oils, like healthy oils like avocados, avocado oils, in healthy animal meat. There'll be some natural fats in there. Nuts and seeds will have a little bit of fat. I mean, there's some really good whole food sources of it. Avoid the seed oils, I'm trying to like the vegetable oils. It's actually more like a soybean oil. And again, those processed food fats are not going to be helpful for you at all. And those give you double the energy that carbohydrates and proteins do, fats do. So they're 9 calories per gram. So they're a lot more bang for the buck, so to speak, with contributing to your energy in the form of calories. And then we have alcohol. Okay, so this is considered a macronutrient. It's not one that I'm recommending you eat to get your goals as far as like losing fat and building muscle. That's really not going to help with that at all. So you just need to understand that alcohol does contribute 7 calories per gram towards your calorie count. So it goes a little bit further than the protein and the carbohydrates do. In addition to that, it actually starts to slow down your metabolism because it's a priority source of fuel because it is toxic to the body. It is a toxin. So when you have alcohol in your system, it's going to work to try to get that out of the system and process it before it's going to get into any fat stores. It's not going to get into fat to utilize for fuel. It's going to burn up that alcohol as fast as it can. And if we're having a glass of wine or a can of beer or whatever every single night, you're always having that in your system and it's going to keep you from your goals. Okay, so just a little note on that. Okay, so when you're thinking about composition of your meals, each meal, you're wanting to start with protein. You should be thinking, okay, what is my protein going to be? So we can get them from animal sources, we can get them from plant sources. And I love plants. Like I love that people want to eat plants and they should eat a lot of plants because it's really good for our gut health. The problem is, for some people, if they're not very metabolically healthy, if you're looking to lose a few pounds, that's, probably not the case. But if you are looking to lose, maybe 50 pounds or something, you're not going to handle the plant proteins as well as someone who is metabolically stable. And so you're probably going to want to be pushing more to the animal sources because it's a complete protein just in and of itself, and it's a little bit easier to assimilate in your body than plant proteins for that person, especially if they have blood sugar control problems, right? Because the plant proteins come with a lot of carbohydrates too. So I'd rather people get their carbohydrate sources from vegetables and fruits than the legumes or beans or whatever, because that is going to contribute a lot to carbohydrates and potentially keep people from getting into those fat stores if that's their goal. All right, so animal sources, if you're going to choose animal sources, especially, I don't know, I guess all of these, you're going to want to try to get the best quality you can. Yes, they're definitely a little a bit more expensive. I feel like the grass-fed versions of things are starting to come down in price in the last several years. So I think that is a good thing, but try to get really good animal sources, good quality, grass-fed, grass-finished if possible, organic or whatever, just everything you can get as clean as you can get it is the best. If you can get it from a local farmer, even better. And then those are the kind of common sources and ways to get your protein in. Does anybody have any questions before I continue? Okay. Um, so what we want to do with our protein, and this is going to be a little bit varied for, I don't know, sometimes they work with women. Hold on one second here. Sometimes I work with men. Did not see her in the waiting room. If anybody sees anybody in the waiting room, let me know because apparently I'm not able to see it that well. Okay, so sorry, Caitlin, I did not see someone trying to get in there for a while. Um, When you start with your protein, we're going to want to get 100 grams minimum per day. That's your minimum kind of drop dead non-negotiable that I want you to work to get. If you're not already there, I would say track your protein for say 3 to 5 days, just of the average types of foods that you eat. Find out how much protein you're getting already, and then just build from there, baby step it. You don't have to jump from say 50 grams a day to 100 overnight. That's not going to feel probably that great. So just slowly move up to that 100 because we need that to maintain the skeletal muscle that we do have. And what I was going to say a minute ago was that sometimes I'm working with, kind of the average size woman, right? Someone who's 5'3" or 4" or whatever. You're going to need to have 100 grams of protein per day. If you are a 6'5" man, you're probably going to need your minimum is probably going to be a lot more than 100 grams. It's probably going to start at 120, 130. So that's just, I wanted to mention that. Little caveat here is if you do have some kind of chronic kidney disease, I don't know, depending on the stage you're at, you're going to want to default to whatever your doctor says for protein recommendations because that can be a big factor in how you're feeling and things if you have that kind of disease. So 100 grams should be your drop dead minimum. My goal for people is to get there and just have it be kind of seamless and easy for them to do, and they don't have to think about working hard to get to that. The ideal end goal grams per pound is going to be 1 per pound of ideal lean body weight. So let's say right now you're 150 pounds, but you'd really like to be at 135, and that's a realistic goal for you. Then your ideal lean, or your ideal protein goal should be about 135 grams. Okay. So that is kind of the, I don't know, there's a range. We could even say like 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of ideal lean body weight. But I feel like for women especially, I feel like it works better when we get to that 1 gram. And as people age too, we need actually a little bit more than that because we are less able to even absorb the protein as we age. So we want to make sure that we're getting ample amounts. But let's just start with 100 and then start with whatever your ideal lean body weight is. Okay, and then the goal, so you can just kind of wrap your brain around getting 30 to 50 grams of protein at each meal, and then round it out with a snack. So again, just a starting place. And then ideally, I want those grams of protein in little containers of time, meaning a breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack, where you kind of have it in regular intervals in dosing yourself with the protein. That's going to help with energy. That's going to help with recovery from workouts. It's just going to help balance mood. It's going to help your immune system. It's going to, go on and on. I can go on and on about that, but it's better to kind of dose them in steady increments. It doesn't have to be exactly every 4 hours or something like that, but just eat regularly. Don't be skipping meals and that kind of thing. And then you're going to want to prioritize the resistance training, which I think what you guys do, there's a lot of resistance training, right? Is that right? I'm sorry, this is not letting me see if people are, there we go. Sorry about that, you guys. I can't, okay, thank you. Okay, so the next thing we need to add the other two macronutrients. I'm just going to ignore alcohol because I don't really have I don't have a recommendation for alcohol. So other than to limit or avoid it altogether. But we need to then add the carbohydrates and the fats. And so, like I said, you start with protein first, and then if you're that should be ratio, not ration. You should try to shoot for a 1-to-1 ratio of protein to carbs if you are fairly metabolically stable, if you are someone who has, knows that they're pre-diabetic, is significantly overweight, maybe has some other autoimmune conditions, things like that, then you're going to want to have less than that 1-to-1 ratio. Maybe you want to shoot for 100 grams minimum of the or maximum of the carbohydrates, maybe even 90 grams, something like that. And again, evenly dose throughout your day. Then you're going to figure out how much or how much fat you need to round out the rest of your calorie intake. So again, we're going to choose real whole food versions as much as possible. So that's going to look like butter, coconut oil, avocados, olive oils, walnut oils, homemade salad dressings, ghee, if you've ever heard of ghee. Um, I make a super easy salad dressing with olive oil, red wine and vinegar. I put Italian seasoning in it. I put a little bit of garlic in there, salt and pepper. And then I throw, I don't know if you've heard of Boursin cheese, the little it's like herb cream cheese kind of type of cheese. And I put a little bit in there and I shake it up in a jar and that's my dressing and it's delicious. And it's just super clean and it's way cheaper than, the bottle dressings and all that kind of stuff. So check out doing stuff like that. Try that out and see. So you're getting health, you're just getting a healthy fat in there. The fats will help with our um, fueling our muscles and fueling our brain. Okay, so both of these. All right, so let's customize your macro goals. So first of all, we have to find out, what is the best amount of calories for you to have? And the thing for me as a nutritionist and coming from like the population of people I work with have a lot of metabolic conditions, mainly thyroid conditions, other hormonal balances, blood sugar dysregulation, and oftentimes, the whole calories in, calories out mentality does not work on these people. It never worked for me. I can tell you that. Even in my 20s, the whole calorie in, calorie out thing was not something that actually worked for me because I did not know at the time that I had some underlying metabolic hormonal imbalances, even in my 20s. So, what we need to understand is that, again, calories are a unit of measurement. And the problem I see with a lot of people, especially women, is that they undereat their calories because they're kind of desperate for weight loss or they're frustrated, whatever, so that they just end up by under eating. And yes, there are times people are overdoing it, especially if they're drinking alcohol a lot, eating a lot of processed foods. That really jacks up the calories, and those are not the good calories, right? So we need to see not only what calories you're having roughly, but what are they made up of, right? So 1,000 calories of um, candy is going to act and make you feel a lot different than 1,000 calories of, vegetables, right? So it's just going to help you function a lot differently. So there's just a rule of thumb here, and it's based on calculations and formulas in physiology and things. But generally speaking, most women need somewhere between 1,600 to 2,400 calories to maintain their current weight and have their composition kind of stay the same. Men need about 2,000 to 3,000 calories, again, just depending on size and that kind of thing. So you can use that as a rule of thumb for yourself. Or you could, to be really targeted about it, you could track every morsel that goes into your mouth for 2 weeks, average it out, and if your weight has not changed, that's your maintenance calories. Okay. So I do know people, and I've worked with people who have had such horrible eating disorders or disordered eating and restrictive eating over time that they will gain weight if they eat, like 1,100 calories. So we have to sort of feed them and refuel their bodies so that they can actually build their metabolic rate up a little bit. Okay, so that's just an extreme example, but I just want you to kind of know what that is for you. But we can shortcut it. You can do the whole two weeks or 4 weeks, whatever you want to do, of tracking everything, or you can use these formulas right here. It's not really a formula, it's multiplication, to find out what your calorie range should be for your goals. Okay, so what we do for fat loss is we take our ideal body weight and we multiply it by 12 and 13. And that will give us how many calories we need to get to that fat loss. For maintenance, you're going to take that same ideal body weight, multiply by 15 and 16 to get your calories for that. And then if you need to gain weight, you multiply your current body weight by the 18 and 19. Okay, so I use that with people like parents who are really struggling to get their teenage boys to gain weight. That's the only time I've ever really had to use that for people. So what we do here for metabolic math examples, we're just going to look at the current weight and then say that the goal weight is 125. So current weight of 140, goal weight is 125. Okay, just for easy numbers. So the maintenance calories for someone who is 140 pounds would be 2,100 calories. So if you are that person that's at 140 pounds or whatever it is, and you're probably eating around 2,100 calories a day without even thinking about it, it's just your natural way of eating, that's where you will stay, roughly in that 140 pounds. To lose weight, another shortcut, you just say, I'm gonna, reduce my calories by 20. And that would give you, this 1,680 calories. So multiplying by 20% of your maintenance calories is another way to figure this out. Okay, and we need to figure this out so we can find out what our macros are. So that's what this is all leading to. Is everybody following me so far? Okay. So let's calculate yours. So just obviously do that in your head, use your phone, get your calculator out, whatever you want to do. If you, figure out what your weight is and what you want it to be. If you want to lose weight, you multiply by 12 and 13 to get to that. Okay. And then let's look at for the loss. That 125 times 12, 125 times 13. That gives us between 1,500 and 1,625 calories. So you see that this number and this number with just using that 20%, it's a little off, but it's not bad, right? I will say too, let's back up a second, that these calculations and the formulas that this is called I think the original calculation is the Harris, I think that's the Harris-Benedict calculator, if I remember properly. But this is like the shortcut version of it, right? It is a place to start, but be flexible because if you're super metabolically unstable and you're got 3 different autoimmune conditions, you might need to start at a different place. Okay, so this is just a guideline. Okay, it's not the rule. All right, then let's look at determining our macronutrients. So we've determined that we need to have 1,500 calories to 1,625 calories in order to get to this 125 pounds. Okay, so we figured that on the last screen. So first we're going to talk about protein. I said that the ideal lean body of 125 pounds would need to have 125 grams of protein. And we multiply that by 4, and that gives us 500 calories from protein. So I'm just using 1,500 calories here as the top end of the calories to make this calculation. So now I have 1,000 calories left that we need to fill with carbohydrates and fats. And the carbohydrates, again, we're going to just pretend that we're metabolically stable for the most part, and we're going to do the 1-to-1 ratio. And that would be 125 grams times 4, which again gives us 500 calories. So now we've used 1,000 calories of our 1,500. So then that remainder, those 500 calories that remain, need to come from fat. Okay, we need to divide that by 9 because there's 9 calories per gram, and that gives us about 56 grams of fat calories. So does everybody see how that works out and how you can plug in your own numbers? You could screenshot it if you want. So that's what you're going to kind of see the breakdown of your macronutrients. So if you are tracking in Chronometer or MyFitnessPal or something like that, I think you can customize your settings and you can put in 125 grams, or I'm sorry, 125 grams protein, 125 grams of carbohydrates, 500 of fat. Some of the programs I've seen sort of give you percentages and they don't let you switch them, but get it as close as you can. See how you feel. How does your training work? Are you feeling good with your training? Do you feel like you're recovering okay? That kind of thing. And then here's an example menu of how you can get this in. So it's kind of crowded here. Breakfast, lunch is here, dinner is here. So if you do breakfast, and I swear everybody says I just have 2 eggs, well, add a third one, you're going to add another 6 grams of protein. So 3 eggs would be 18 grams of protein. 2 strips of bacon is going to give you another 16 grams. So right there, you have 34 grams of protein. So this is your protein right here. Obviously, there's some fat in the bacon. You'll probably will cook this in a little bit of oil with the eggs. If you cook your bacon first and then cook your eggs in it, this is just an example. You probably don't need to add a lot of extra fat, right? So you probably don't need extra oil. You can saute veggies, like I do a lot of peppers and onions and that kind of thing with eggs. Add some berries. The veggies and berries are your carbohydrate. Okay, you probably might find that if you're eating more fruit and vegetables, it's hard to get, especially if they're non-starchy vegetables, it's going to be hard to get carbohydrates up. You could add like part of a sweet potato or something to this that's left over just to get some good starchy carb before you do a workout or whatever it is that you need to do to fuel your day. I do recommend if you do struggle with losing weight, if you have weight loss resistance, to do the starchier things or the more carby things in the morning because you're better able to handle it with your glucose and insulin than if you do it at nighttime. Then for lunch, let's say you have some leftovers in the fridge and you have 5 ounces of a steak. That's 8 grams per ounce. That's about 40 grams protein. Throw a salad in there, that homemade dressing that I talked about. There's your veggies, your carbohydrate, and your dressing, or I mean, and your fat. You could throw some nuts and seeds on your salad. You could, again, throw some starchy carbs in there, maybe a little bit of quinoa or something like that. That will help you get your carbohydrates again earlier in the day. And then dinner, chicken breast, a 7 ounce chicken breast would get you about 49 grams of protein, roasted vegetables. Maybe you toss them in some avocado oil in your seasoning. That's going to give you, your good healthy fat and the carbohydrates to go with it. I just think that it's easiest if you prioritize the protein and get that. And then if you're eating more whole foods for the other things, it all just sort of falls into place. Snacks can look anything you like. Do you like Greek yogurt? Do you like those Chomps beef sticks? Those are really good. I would try to stay away from a lot of the processed, like protein bars and that kind of thing. There's usually a lot of extra junk in them. If you're struggling with inflammation, that's probably not going to be super helpful to your fat loss goals. If that's what you're looking for, use them as a tool. Don't use them all the time. Use that kind of thing as needed. And let's see here. And the last thing, just, if you want to reach out, I have a free Facebook group. My Instagram is Rock Bottom Wellness. I have a monthly membership, and I now accept Blue Cross Blue Shield Minnesota. I also can take the federal employee program, Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance as well, and I'm working to add other insurances as well. So that's that. So does anybody have any questions? Um, you know what? Tracare. I haven't, that one hasn't come across. I can check on that for sure. I can check on that. Oh yeah, recipe for salad dressing. Um, I will look up Tracare. Okay, so salad dressing. I'm gonna type it in the chat because it's not even a recipe. I mean, there's ingredients. I take is it the quart jar or the smaller jar, the pint jar? Um, it's not the big one where you would really can peaches or something, and that's what I usually see the bigger ones. It's the smaller one. And I just pour some olive oil in there, probably, I don't know, fourth a cup, a little more than a fourth a cup, and then red wine vinegar. I do salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, get the spelling here, garlic powder. I mean, you could add any of those seasonings you like. And then I take some crumbles of Boursin cheese. It's a soft cheese. It's like urban chives or something like that. And then I shake it up, and that's it. Like I said, I don't even measure anything with it. But when I do it, it usually covers about 2 salads, and I use them for lunches a lot. I don't keep it in the refrigerator. I just use it the next day. But it's really good. The Boursin cheese, I think I spelled Boursin wrong now when I see it. It's Boursin. But I don't know, it just gives a little bit of a creamy texture to it, but it's not super creamy and thick. And I don't know, it just really tastes good, and it's just easy to whip up. I recorded a video the other day for my Facebook group of me preparing my salad, which is mixed greens, chicken breast that I cut up. So I cut up the chicken breast there, during that prep time. It wasn't already cut up. I made the dressing that I just told you about, and put some other things on the salad, and the whole video was like 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So we don't have to think that preparing decent food takes so long to do, and that it's easier to drive through somewhere to do it, because it was like 2 minutes and 13 seconds was my video, and that was me getting the wrong oil and having to go back to my pantry to get the right one. So it just kind of was aware, and I was just aware that that was a something that we do actually have time to eat better if we just realize it and make the time. So does anybody have any questions, or if you want to go over any other calculations, you're welcome, Kaylin. Any other like calculations you want to practice or go over? Um, it's really simple math. It's just knowing what numbers to use, I guess. Or any other questions for that matter? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, that's it. I will send, oh, one thing I was gonna say, let me send that everybody asked me how to figure out how much protein is in each food. So I'm gonna send you, and I'll put it in the chat here. Let me just pull up the link quick. It's just protein chart that I made actually for myself. It's just a Google sheet, nothing fancy, but it just gives you basically how much protein per ounce. So if you, that's what I recommend doing is if you're looking at what you normally eat for breakfast, and for example, if you eat 2 eggs, if you just add a third egg, that's another 6 grams of protein. That's how you can just start a baby step doing what you're doing with your food, but just make it better with the protein. So take a look at this link. That's why I made this for myself, because I just wanted to see how to add a little bit at each meal rather than just think I had to make something totally different to make the protein grams count. So if you click on the link, it's just a Google Doc, Google Sheet, make a copy of it, and then you can add to it and change, whatever you want to do and add foods that you normally eat and go from there. All right. All right. Well, did everybody see that in the chat? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Oh, good. I'm glad it's helpful. Goodbye. Thank you.